Good, happy Saturday evening. Is Saturday, June 17, 2023. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the Riley King Newscast right here on RK Network. We have a lot of news to get to this Saturday evening, so let's get started right now. First up, Ohio State Legislature considers trans rights bill. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
People remember ads with young people having a good time. So to help you remember that Liberty Mutual customizes your home insurance, here's a pool party.
Good times insurance.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
We are going to turn now to our GMA cover story as the nation sees waves of legislation, which critics say targets the LGBTQ plus community. This morning, all eyes on the Buckeye State, with Pride celebrations becoming a call to action for that community to push back against these bills. And Alex Prochet is in Columbus, Ohio, as this story unfolds. Good morning again, Alex.
Good morning, Gio. Yes, welcome to Pride Columbus. Now, we're still a couple of hours away from this parade kicking off, but look, we got vendors set up over here, a march check-in back here, the police back here with a staging area. Stonewall Columbus says some 700,000 people are participating in Pride festivities here this weekend, but they're saying it's not just a celebration, but also a call to action. This morning, Columbus is preparing to welcome an estimated 700,000 people to its annual Pride Parade, while a battle is brewing just blocks away at the Ohio State House over the future of trans rights. The Republican-controlled state legislature is considering a number of bills impacting trans youth. One, called HB 68, would make it illegal for doctors to provide gender-affirming care for trans minors, including prescribing puberty blockers or hormones.
That one definitely concerns me, considering I am actively on the waiting list for getting puberty blockers.
11-year-old Michael Faria has identified as a boy for years now. His parents say puberty blockers are needed to essentially allow him to pause his development for now.
It makes me uncomfortable that I having to go through feminine puberty.
HB 68 is to save adolescents from experimentation.
Republican State Representative Gary Click is the primary sponsor of this bill. He also touts it would ban doctors from performing gender reassignment surgery on a minor, something opponents argue isn't happening in Ohio.
I have done a lot of research. I've talked to a lot of professionals on this. Our side gets ignored in this. We have the science is on our side.
But the American Academy of Pediatrics published a study finding transgender teens who were given puberty blockers experienced superior mental health outcomes compared to those who wanted the medication but didn't receive it. And a 2022 study concluded transgender and non-binary youth with access to gender-affirming care had 60% lower odds of moderate or severe depression.
I certainly wish them the best. And I love these kids. I care about these kids. And I'm not trying to run people's lives.
The Farias have accepted that HB 68 may become law. They say that's why, for many in the LGBTQ community, this year's Pride celebration has turned into a call to action.
Although it will hurt the trans community, it is not going to make us detransition or just pop out of existence, I guess. They aren't necessarily getting rid of us.
Now, the Faria family tells me that they're going to stay in Ohio and fight this legislation for as long as possible. But Gio, it's not just here in Ohio. The Human Rights Campaign, which tracks a lot of these bills, say some 500 bills impacting the LGBTQ community have been introduced across the country just this year. Gio?
All right, 500 bills. Important story. All right, Alex Prochet, thank you so much for joining.
Well, hey there, GMA.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. The first official birthday celebration for King Charles. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
Hey.
Jake from State Farm.
We have to know. Yeah, these are State Farm pajamas.
No. All right, we do move now to the UK and a public milestone for the new king, the annual Trooping the Color for King Charles III. ABC's Inez de la Catera has more from London. Inez, good morning.
Good morning, Whit, and lots of excitement here. We've already seen members of the royal family passing by. We saw the king, as head of the army, saluting his soldiers. Tens of thousands gathered here to watch Trooping the Color, a ceremony that's marked the sovereign's official birthday for over 200 years. The king's first Trooping the Color as monarch, all the pomp and pageantry you'd expect. His Majesty taking the salute on horseback, something we haven't seen since 1986, when the late Queen rode out. This is King Charles's official birthday. Over 1,400 soldiers parading, 200 horses, and 400 musicians in one carefully choreographed display. Trooping has marked the official birthday of the sovereign for more than 260 years. But there's one very obvious absence at the party. Harry and Meghan were not invited this year. The couple attending last year's special Jubilee trooping at the request of Queen Elizabeth II, watching it with other family members from Horse Guards Parade.
Well, I wouldn't have expected Harry and Meghan to be at Trooping the Colour. It's really the King's official birthday. He's made his position clear. He's said that he wants to have a separate life in America, in California. And that's what he's doing.
Stealing the show, as he so often does, little Prince Louis on the way to the parade.
I think on the balcony, when we have the fly past, which will be an extended fly past, it'll be the main working royals, so Charles, Camilla, the Prince and Princess of Wales, possibly their children. The King has made it clear that he's going to focus on the working royals.
And the family will soon gather on that famous balcony behind me to watch 70 aircraft fly by, an extra large formation as it was canceled on Coronation Day due to bad weather. Guys?
Great reporting, Inez. Real quick, side note, Whit and I were just talking about how grateful we were to run into you in the building this week when you were stateside.
And I can't believe I missed you.
Yeah. Always great to have you,
So sad
Inez.
I missed you, but great to see you guys.
Well, hey there, GMA fans.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Putin says nuclear weapons have been delivered to Brussels in a new speech. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
The war in Ukraine and Vladimir Putin's new statements about nuclear weapons and his possible response if Ukraine receives NATO F-16 fighter jets. ABC's Ian Pannell is in Ukraine for us this morning with the latest. Ian, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Whit. That's right. The first Russian tactical nukes have now been deployed in Belarus to the north of Ukraine. But it's also effectively moving the weapons onto the border of 3 NATO countries as well. Putin's claiming that they'd only be used in the event of a threat to the Russian state. But remember, he invaded Ukraine in the first place because he falsely claimed it was a threat to the Russian state. This isn't the first time, of course, that he's raised the spectre of a nuclear attack as a threat in this war, and this deployment is just the first wave, with more to come. The Biden administration says it's closely monitoring the situation, but for now says there's no reason to adjust America's nuclear posture. Meanwhile, Ukraine's allies preparing to start training pilots on F-16 and other fighter jets, which could be delivered to Ukraine as early as late summer. Russia's saying that it will try to attack those aircraft, with Putin warning there's a serious danger that NATO could be pulled further into the war. Meanwhile, Ukraine is saying that it's made further small advances in its counter-offensive. And this morning, though, the British military, the British Ministry of Defence, assessing that Russia likely has a temporary advantage in the battles in the south, especially by increased use of air power, in particular attack helicopters. Whit.
All right, Ian, thank you.
Well, hey there, GMA fans.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. DOJ finds discriminatory, unlawful policy in Minneapolis Police Department. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
Tequila Herradura Ultra. Extraordinary awaits.
To the troubled police department in Minneapolis, under the scrutiny of a federal judge and an independent monitor to enforce change following a scathing report on policing there. This comes 3 years after the police killing of George Floyd. ABC's Jay O'Brien joins us now from the Department of Justice. Good morning, Jay.
Janae, good morning. This is that scathing 89-page report alleging deep-rooted problems in the Minneapolis Police Department, accusing officers of discrimination and using excessive, sometimes deadly force. This morning, the aftershocks from a scathing Department of Justice report accusing the Minneapolis Police Department of repeatedly using excessive force and discriminating against Black and Native American residents. It was this cell phone video taken by a bystander on a Minneapolis street in 2020, showing police officer Derek Chauvin kneeling on George Floyd's neck, that sparked nationwide outrage and prompted this 2-year federal investigation into the city's policing.
The patterns and practices we observed made what happened to George Floyd possible.
Among the findings, that the MPD routinely used excessive force, including unjustified deadly force, that officers shot at people before even determining they were a threat, and that officers commonly used neck restraints like the one that killed George Floyd on people accused of low-level offenses. In one example cited in the report, 3 years before Floyd's murder, Derek Chauvin is accused of holding a handcuffed 14-year-old boy by his throat as the teen's mother shouted, "Please do not kill my son. He's only 14. In another, an officer threw a handcuffed Black man to the ground, face first, claiming he had tensed up during a search. Officers also accused of targeting peaceful demonstrators and journalists, including in this image included in the report, where investigators say an MPD sergeant is seen pepper spraying a reporter in the face at a protest before walking away.
Saying that now they're going to do what they need to do is a slap in the face, particularly to those who have been oppressed, those who have been abused, those who have been crying out for justice.
DOJ and city officials now negotiating what's called a consent decree, a deal often enforced by a court-appointed magistrate to overhaul the city's police department.
We will change the narrative around policing in this city.
That process, though, of court-supervised police reform can take years. The Baltimore Police Department, for example, is still under a consent decree that it struck with the Department of Justice 6 years ago. And this morning, we're hearing from Ben Crump, the attorney for the Floyd family, and his team, saying that this report and the expected reforms, quote, give hope for change in the MPD, but that they remain skeptical about Minneapolis's commitment to change and accountability. Janae?
Hard to believe it's been 3 years since that racial reckoning across the country after his death. Jay O'Brien, thank you so much.
Well, hey there, GMA.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And we are going to switch gears now, and let's go into your weather. Your weather for tonight. In Boston, it'll be 58 degrees, 58 degrees in Boston tonight. New York, 64 degrees. Washington, 61 degrees. Newark, 62 degrees. Atlanta, 64 degrees. Minneapolis, 73 degrees. Memphis. Minneapolis, 66 degrees. Jacksonville, Florida, 70. Tampa Bay, 76. Miami, 78. Los Angeles, 62. San Francisco, 56. And that is a check of your weather. And that does it for this evening edition of the Riley King Newscast right here on RK Network. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Good night and goodbye.